Hey, all hands in. All hands in.
Got it?
All hands in. PRG on 3. 1, 2, 3.
PRG. Do it.
We're gonna find something.
So on this particular day, I was joined by my partners in the Paleo Research Group. We also had our guests Damus Reed and Cassidy Lockard with us this day, and Cassidy acted as our guide because he had extensive knowledge of the layout of the property. Prior to entering the property, we had a meeting with the property owners, and the property owners began to tell us legends of a Bigfoot type creature that once roamed this property, and these stories date back a few decades in time. Doug Thornton will give us a little bit more details about this a little later on in the video.
We actually could probably go to the end of this field and then walk to the big timber and circle around and not have to go through this.
I like
Okay.
that idea. That sounds like a great idea. Let's go straight.
This is a structure right here. Hey, this is part of a little wall right here. See the bottles? See the cans?
I didn't even whiskey coolers here.
No, that's not. But these are some good antique bottles here. This is an old trash dump. But this is a foundation of something here. This is purposely stacked. I bet you can buy. This will tell you how old this is. Pull tab. And that's Aunt Jemima. There's probably some old Coke and Pepsi bottles here. This looks just like a trash dump. They would back their truck down to here and dump it off. I don't know why there's rock platforms here though. So it's probably not a whiskey still.
What? The table?
I don't know, it could be like the back porch of an old house or something, or a shed, a barn.
I mean, we need to find some very thick pieces of
Hole theory.
wood and knock them together.
Do it.
The holes all through these rocks with
Yep.
water bored out.
Yep.
So
Tell us what the theory is.
we're on the trail. We met with the property owners, Cassidy's parents, and the stories of Bigfoot in this area, I'm not going to say are compelling. Nothing's really compelling until you see it. They've heard loud knocks, smelt the skunk smell of them. Grandmother had one actually look up at her and chase her, run straight at her. That's the one that she shot at. And then, you know, this area is so desolate. If you see, it's such a downhill. I mean, it's a 25% grade downhill. The water's down there. So, you know, you have these shelters potentially for stuff like this. You know, where did the natives use this? Yeah, probably at some point, potentially. We could probably look on the ground and find remains of tools. But the paranormal encounters with the Bigfoot is interesting. There's always a correlation between the First Nations people and Bigfoot. Typically where you hear of one, you hear of the other. And you know, this is it's been quite the hike to try and get through this area. It's muggy, it's bad. I'm pouring sweat, and it is an ankle breaker to get through here. But you know, you come across formations like this, and you see where the water has eroded out of this. As you step back, Brent, and Brent had a wonderful working theory of how when the flood happened, the waters came seeping up out of the ground and came out of rocks. You know, with enough force and pressure, that erosion could happen. Of course, we don't also know the magnificent forces of God forcing water out of the belly of the earth. And so is this potentially where water seeped out of in areas like this? It's a cool working theory. But if you look right here, you know, this is obviously a shelter. You could easily put a small fire here, sit here and, you know, flint knap your spear points, your arrowhead tips, making your tools. You know, we could probably find something. What pieces of tools and rock would you think would be here that would lead you to that, Brent?
Well, traditionally what you find is projectile points or knives. Sometimes you'll find a celt. A celt is a tool that we would call a wedge today. When you're splitting wood, you'd drive this wedge and you'd hit it with a rubber mallet and help you split wood. So they had tools like that to work with wood. The stone tools that they had, the knives would be for skinning game, and the projectile points would be for killing game or protecting themselves from other people. So that's typically what you find here. Sometimes you find remains of bones where they had a campfire and they cooked an animal. Often you will find pieces of jewelry like a banner stone or some beads and maybe some pottery shards. So there's several things you could find in an overhang. In the bluff dweller culture that lived in these bluffs often made their camps. They were kind of nomads. They would wander from place to place, but sometimes they would use the same camp over and over in their travels. They would travel in a loop looking for different game, and they would circle back and stay in shelters that they had stayed in previously. So that's what you find typically. Actually, I see something right now. Hold on a second. I don't know if you can get your camera in there. See that? There's an indention in this stone right there.
Put your finger in it.
Right there is an indention. And so typically that's called a nutting stone, and that was used to put hickory nuts
like these
or pecans or different types of nuts on, and you would take a rock like this and you would smash it and you would get the meat out of the inside. And so look at this. So we know this kind of stuff is native to this place. This is probably not some that was here when the natives were here using this, but this is called a nutting stone because they used to break nuts on it, and they would use the same stone over and over, and it would eventually wear an indention in that. And because this is sandstone, it's a soft stone. So by repeatedly using that, you made that indention in that stone. It's pretty cool. That's evidence that this shelter was used.
Yep. So
This needs to be sifted.
yeah, there's some hair, some deer hair, probably some hog tracks, some deer maybe.
Yeah.
You'd be more inclined to know about that.
This would be a good example of a bluff shelter dwelling.
Yeah.
And this hasn't been sifted before. I bet you could find a few things right here. So after exploring a few bluff shelter dwellings, we headed back toward the truck because there was another place that we wanted to go to, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough daylight to get there.
Mondo?
So after the hot and muggy hike back to the truck, we all got in and headed towards our next destination. We had about a 30-minute drive ahead of us, but soon we would be traveling across the open water in a boat headed toward a mountain. And that mountain would be Sugarloaf Mountain in the middle of Greer's Ferry Lake. And I believe we're going to have some interesting facts to disclose about this mountain.
They're not thick up here like that.
Washington State.
Yeah, this is for Puget Sound.
Yeah,
It's a
ocean's
Yeah,
outstanding.
it's a nice boat. Alright, that's our destination right there. Not very far away. Kayak, man. Everybody ready? Oh, we're going swimming. Ready?
Waves get past it.
Can we cut it or keep it going?
Yeah, you can cut it for a little bit.
This right here.
No. A big hill. All right, so we got the boat secure. We're on the dock. This is Sugarloaf Mountain on Greer's Ferry Lake. I got my crew here. We're ready to hike this thing. We're gonna go up about 900 feet in elevation, and we're gonna show you later on the computer screen why we're climbing this and the possible ancient archaeology thing that's going on here. There's been artifacts found on this island. There's a cave systems in this island, and we're gonna climb this thing, see what we can discover.
How you feeling, Brent?
It's kind of hot. I got to take my shoe. This tree is probably, what, 65 to 100 years old?
At least, yes.
All right, so I don't know if this naturally occurred, but in times past, when the Native Americans here, they purposely bent trees like this, and this was a trail marker. This marked some of their paths that when they were traveling across states even, and they would mark trees like this. This could be a natural forming tree, but 75, 80 years ago, there was a lot of trees like this here that the old timers knew that the Indians had deformed them like this purposely to be a trail marker. So depends on how old this is. If it's 150 years old, then yes, it could have been done purposely by the Native Americans, but if not, it's just naturally forming. But this is one of the ways that they used to mark their trails.
Yep, with half-inch growth range, but these are, this could be 100, 150 years old or so.
So because
this is a very poor, it's rocky, very good, poor, good soil, and the rainwater runs off real quick, so it's not going to be a fast growing tree.
So this tree could be older than a
Yeah,
tree
it could be
normally
more-
would
more-
be.
more than 100 years old, you know.
It could be the growth could be stunted.
Yeah, well,
Because of
yeah,
this poor
trees
soil.
on sites
So it may
like
be
this
older
are
than
not
what
growing
we-
fast. You know,
It could be older than what we think.
Yeah,
Is it because of the slope that's not growing fast? Can you repeat why it could be stunted?
because this is poor soil site here.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, not much water. I mean, when it rains, it runs right off.
Gotcha.
And this is not much good soil here. It's just rocky.
Gotcha.
You know, 2/3 rocks probably, and the other part poor soil.
Gotcha.
If we see a tree cut down, you know, they might.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't noticed any yet, but they might every now and then they might cut one down because it fell across
The trail.
the trail.
Yeah. Okay.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thank you.
So after all that climbing, we still weren't at the top of the mountain. We had a little ways left to go, but after we did get to the top, we rested for a bit, and I began to tell the guys about the possible significance of this place.
So one of the reasons why we climbed this is not only to get this great view that we have up here, but if you look behind me, there's a pyramid-shaped mountain in the background. I've climbed to the top of that mountain also. That mountain is the same height as this mountain. And if you look through these trees up here, walk through here. There's a peak sticking up right there that looks like a flat top pyramid. See that?
Here, point again.
Right there.
Oh, it's in the front. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back up here. So if you use Google Earth Pro, you can use the tools that are on Google Earth Pro, and you can use the drawing tool, and you can put a pinpoint in the center of this mountain, the center of that mountain, and the center of the one that's over here. And when you draw a line to each of those center points, it makes a perfect equilateral triangle. And I'll demonstrate that later on the computer. But there's been artifacts found on this mountain, on that mountain behind me, and on this mountain over here. And supposedly there's a lot of mounds. This is the old river channel out here. Before the lake was built, this is a Corps of Engineers lake. It's man-made. But there's a river channel out there, and there was mounds and campsites all along the river channel. So this was probably a place that was used for ceremonial purposes. Maybe the chiefdom, the chief of the chiefdom lived on top of this. Or maybe it was some kind of worship site. Also, we're facing west. The other end of this faces east, which is facing the rising sun. There's a trail that runs across the top. There's actually 14 acres of land on top of this. And so the way it's lined up lends itself to be a ritual site that had to do with sun worship. And the fact that there's artifacts to prove that there was human occupation here in times past, we can make an educated guess about what this place was used for. All right, so we discussed that this could be a ritualistic site, and if it is, this is the end of the island mountain that we're on that faces the east. So it'd be this way. So this platform up here could have been used for some kind of pagan rituals concerning sun god worship. And like I said before, there's been artifacts found here. We know that people occupied this place in times past, so it's just a possibility. So this is the last point of interest on the trail, but I used to be a manager of a marina that was right back over that way. And one day I had a guy land in a helicopter in the parking lot of our marina. And so he gets out and he walks down and he says, "Hey man, you think it'd be possible if I could get a ride on a boat around this lake?" And I said, "Did you just land in a helicopter in my parking lot?" He said, "Yes, sir." And I said, "Well, will you give me a ride in a helicopter?" And he goes, "Sure." I said, "Well, get in the boat." So we got in the boat and rode around, and we got in the helicopter and flew around for a while a little bit later, and we landed that helicopter right here where I'm standing. And it happened to be the helicopter that chased O.J. Simpson in the O.J. chase. This guy lived in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and he had bought this helicopter from LAPD. And he later traded it in for a Cessna Citation. But anyway, I got to fly in the O.J. Chase helicopter and land right here.
So after this big day of adventure, we went back to my mother's house, and she allowed us to all take showers and clean up. And then she fixed a meal for us, and we were able to enjoy a meal. And then we got a little bit of entertainment from Thomas Reed, as he entertained us on the organ.